morning, senior high school students. This is Teacher Gian, and welcome back to another lesson of Earth and Life Science. This time, we're going to be discussing weathering types and factors. But before that, let's watch a video first on the types of demolition engineers do on a building that has to be demolished. Believe it or not, buildings cannot last even a century. Okay, there are buildings there, of course, that lasted for a century, but the safety actually is not of certainty. So according to the building code of the Philippines, every building must follow, standards when it comes to building, but it has to be demolished between 50 to 60 years. So there you have it. Okay, what's the average lifespan of an average building? Okay, a building built on masonry and wood can last about 120 years. I told you about that. They last a century. But the problem is it safe? That's why, okay, for most modernist buildings, the buildings we have today, it's half of that. It's 60 years. Okay, plus the factor of weathering, which we're gonna be discussing today. Okay, popular technique in demolishing buildings is called the crane bulk, okay, in which they destroy the foundations of that building, like this one, and there it goes. Okay. Demolition must be within a safe space, of course. Okay, another is a high reach arm. Engineers are just gonna use a big arm to topple a building. Wow, pretty cool. Okay, next is the popular method of implosion. Okay, so in implosion, okay, you just have to set up dynamites or explosives inside the building. That's why it's called implosion. Okay, and wait for it to become evacuated. Once it's safe already, then you can explode your buildings one by one on each part of the foundation. Pretty cool, right? So what's the relevance of demolition in our lesson today? Destroying buildings, weathering rocks, destroying rocks also come in many forms. And the reason why buildings are about to be demolished is that rocks inside, the minerals inside the buildings are already weathered. Okay, sa Tagalog, ibig sabihin, nasisira na unti-unti. Especially in the Philippines, wherein it's humid, sometimes it's hot, okay, there is a rainy season, okay, lots of elements come into play in which it can contribute to the weathering and destruction of the building. That's why buildings here get demolished early. So in this lesson, the learners will be able to develop and demonstrate an understanding of the geologic process. But specifically, the learners shall be able to describe how rocks undergo weathering. Okay? They have two learning outcomes this lesson. Define weathering and distinguish between the two main types of weathering, and identify the factors for weathering. Okay, so before we start our lesson for today, I want you to know that we will have a passive exam. What does it mean? Okay, passive exam doesn't have to look like this in our classroom. Okay, it needs to be like this. Okay, the instruction is simple. Fill in the graphic organizer of the terms that you will encounter while the teacher is discussing online. So while I'm discussing, okay, weathering is actually divided into two parts. One starts with letter B, 6 starts with letter C. So you will answer those, okay, you will write those on a piece of paper and complete this graphic organizer after the lesson is finished. Okay, and that will be your quiz already. So the first type of weathering has 4 subtypes. The second type of weathering has 3 subtypes. So you need to fill in the terms in order to pass the quiz. So that is our passive exam. Okay? And it's named passive. Why? Because you're gonna answer it while I'm discussing, not on an allotted time. So take your time while filling this graphic organizer. So let's start. Again, like destroying many buildings, weathering rocks come in many forms, okay? You might have seen documentaries or videos about destroyed rocks like this. Okay, what do they look like in the first place? So I think that's another day of discussion next time. But let's focus first in this. Okay, what do we call this object? Okay, this is called the obelisk. Okay, obelisk or Cleopatra's Needle. Okay, this is a short building in Egypt. Okay, and you know, in Egypt, okay, the climate in Egypt is hot and dry, and you can see that the inscriptions on this obelisk is still legible, readable. Okay, you can still see them. Okay, after that, Americans have decided to, borrow one of the obelisks and display it on Washington D.C. And what happened? Okay, this is the obelisk transported in the USA. And look at this. The climate in USA is actually different from Egypt, okay? It's humid and cool. Okay, so what happened to the obelisk? Okay, it's obvious to see that it has undergone different kinds of weathering already. So you might have an idea that weathering has different factors. Okay, some rocks can last longer in some climates, but some rocks can last shorter than others because of the climate conditions. So that's an idea when it comes to weather. Okay, let's define first weathering. Weathering is simply disintegration of rocks by either physical or chemical means. So you can see here, okay, on the left is a cave made out of calcite. Okay, calcite is a mineral comprising caves. And because of weathering due to water and wind and other elements, it has disintegrated into this. You can imagine this cave being melted. Yeah. Okay. How about this one? Okay, this is the part of Mohenjo-Daro. Mohenjo-Daro was an ancient city in India, and it has just been discovered recently, like in the 1900s. So you can see that parts of this city is disintegrated already. Let's start with the first type of physical weathering. Okay, take note, the first type of weathering we're going to discuss is physical weathering. So one type of it doesn't happen in the Philippines because we don't have freezing here, we don't have snowy weather or climate. Okay, so this one is frost action. So frost action is freezing and thawing. Okay, the frost action comes in two parts. One is freezing, second is thawing. So the water inside this will freeze and then it will become water again. That's the meaning of thawing. Ice becomes water. Okay, causes expansion and contraction of rocks, eventually breaking them. So I have a video here which explains how frost action happens. First things first, remember that water expands when it freezes. Okay, sa Tagalog, lumalaki yung tubig kapag nagiging yelo. Okay, that's why you cannot put your glass bottles inside your refrigerators, your freezers. Bakit? Kasi it might break kasi the water inside it can actually get destroyed because it's expanded by water. Okay? And ice contracts when it thaws. So, pag uminit na yung yelo, naging tubig na, lumiliit naman siya. So, imagine niyo na if you put water on inside this rock, pwede siyang magyelo and it expands the rocks, pushing it apart. Okay, so that's what happens in frost action. So I'll explain more with the video. So in the video, okay, the crevices in the rocks get filled with water. Okay, and then when it's winter, okay, it becomes ice. And remember, okay, ice expands. So ang gagawin niya, itutulak niya, it will push the rocks apart, okay, making it, okay, like this. Okay? It will repeat the process for years. Okay, uulan, papasukin ng tubig. Okay, it will rain. Rain inside the rocks will become ice. And the process continues, eventually destroying the rock and splitting them apart. Okay, that's what happens with frost action. So when you see rocks like this, okay, sometimes people say that uh, a strong man chopped it, okay, or a machinery destroyed it. Most of the time, it's because of freezing, okay. Okay. And remember, frost action happens in areas that can have winter. Okay, next is plant action. Okay, the roots of the trees actually can cause weathering, can cause destruction on your rocks and soil. Okay, I'll give you an example. Okay, the root system will increase in volume. Okay, remember that they store water. Yung roots, they store and absorb water. And once it absorbs water, it actually robs, ninanakawan niya yung rocks of moisture. So yung rocks, magbibitak-bitak kasi natuyo. Okay, that's what happens with plant action. It causes cracks. And another thing, kapag lumaki yung puno, it can actually destroy the rock itself. I'll give you some examples. Lichens and actually algae can do that. Okay, how about this? Okay, this is an example. This is an example of a house that got its foundation split apart. Okay, because there is a tree beside it. Okay, sorry, hindi kita yung tree. There is a tree beside it. Okay, that's why you can see that trees are actually distant from buildings. Okay, malayo sila sa buildings. Why? Because they can affect the foundation of buildings. Okay, that's why in every city planning you have, the architects, the city planners, they plan trees to be at least 4 meters apart of the building walls for it to be safe from interfering with the roots trees. Okay, so that is again tree or plant action. So plant action is when the root stem or the plants themselves destroy the rocks. Not to mention that the rocks themselves are the soil. Okay, pag sinira ng plants, ng trees yung rocks, they become soil. Anyway, let's continue. Okay, one of the most common types of weathering is abrasion. Okay, ano nga ba yung ibig sabihin ng abrasion? Okay, abrasion is the process of scraping or wearing something away. So, ibig sabihin sa Tagalog ay gasgas. Okay? So, yung abrasion ay kapag ginagasgasan ng mga elements like ice, water, wind, and other rocks, okay, ginagasgasan nila yung rocks themselves para masira siya. So, ito yung example ng abrasion. And ito, yung sand dunes, actually, sinira siya ng wind. Kaya, kitang-kita yung mga lines niya. So, ito pa, ang snow, or yung glaciers, yung rocks, sinisira ng ice, yung rocks dito sa ilalim. Okay? So, these are glaciers. So, what are glaciers anyway? So, glaciers are actually rivers, slow rivers of ice. So, sa maniwala kahit sa hindi, itong river na to ay gumagalaw ng ilang sentimetro lang araw-araw. So, yung ice, gagasgasan niya yung rocks. And hindi lang ice yung gumagalaw dyan, kundi may kasama ng mga bato-bato. So, ilang mga gramo or mga piraso ng bato yung sumasama na sa yelo. Okay, so, yan ay type ng abrasion, paggasgas ng bato. So yeah, not only water, not only wind, but also snow and ice and yeah, waterfalls. They destroy rocks. That's why rocks get smooth like this. Okay, so that is abrasion. Okay. Next type of weathering is actually exfoliation. I'm gonna explain to you what exfoliation is in nature. So remember that unlike ice, when rocks are heated, solids are heated, they expand. So, lumalaki daw yung rocks. Okay? So, rock surface cools and contracts kapag gabi. So, pag malamig, lumiliit naman daw yung rocks. Hindi nyo man napapansin, pero particles ng rocks, they get contracted, okay, microscopically. So, uulit-ulitin yan ng rocks na parang ganito, no? Lalaki yung rock. Of course, not that scale, okay? I mean, microscopically. So, lalaki yung rock sa init, liliit yung rock sa lamig, okay? Eventually, the rock fractures into layers like this, okay? Kasi sobrang init eh. Okay, and the layers will form like a skin of an onion, and then the layers will shatter, okay, as the rock is weathered with other elements. So, kaya pala, yung rocks, they can actually appear like they have skin, like this. Okay? So, rocks can have skins like this. Why? Because of heating and cooling down. Heating, cooling down, heating, cooling down. So, that is an example of an exfoliation. Like example of this video, okay? Ayan, no? Sobrang init. Okay? The skin of the rock actually came out because of too much heat. One more time. Okay, so natanggal yung skin ng rock because of too much heat. And that is an example, perfect example of exfoliation. Okay, so they are called physical weathering because they only affect the physical structure of the rocks. Okay, but what happens when you mix it with, let's say, acid? Or we mix it with water, okay, or maybe there is a chemical reaction going on, okay, inside that rock, okay, you mix it with other substances within minerals. So hindi na siya physical weathering, we call it already chemical weathering. Okay, again, why is it called chemical weathering? Because it's caused already by chemical reactions. So that is chemical weathering. And it has three kinds. So let's start with chemical weathering. First is oxidation. Okay, I think you're familiar with it already. Kapag yung bakal, metals, when mixed with air, especially oxygen, they form, let's say, oxides. They form corrosions. Okay, one of them is rust. Okay, rust. Kalawang sa Tagalog. So believe it or not, colored red soil and the rocks like this actually are products of oxidation. Okay, kaya sa Las Piñas, di ba may tinatawag tayong pulang lupa. Actually, the rocks there are actually iron rich. So believe it or not, the rocks actually have iron. So meron silang iron. And iron forms with oxygen, forming iron oxide. Okay, and that is chemically known as rust. Okay, so that's what happens with oxidation. Okay, that's why they can have an orange or brownish or reddish color. So believe it or not, this is actually destroying the rock, making it into soil. So again, if you ever see a red kind of rock or soil, okay, it actually is because it has iron in it and it's mixed with oxygen, making it into rust. So next is hydration. Hydration is when minerals in the rock absorb water and they expand. Okay, it can be known as hydrolysis. Okay, in other books, it's known as hydrolysis. Okay, hydrolysis or hydration. So, okay, they absorb water and the water actually change the composition. Example of it is granite. Okay, if you remember our rock lessons last time, okay, sana naaalala nyo pa yung igneous rock, which is granite. And believe it or not, granite has aluminum. Okay, aluminum. Let's say silicon. Okay, of course it's silicon. And it also has oxygen and some iron, of course. So believe it or not, okay, your iron, aluminum, silicon, they are most of them are metals, okay, or metalloids. Okay, and metals and metalloids react with water, which is H2O. I think you know that already. Okay, so water, H2O, reacts with other metals and metalloids. What happens to granite? Yung granite, when it mixes with water, granite actually produces this one. Okay, this is called kaolinite. Okay, and this is quartz. Okay, ito yung mga batong nakikita nyo sa tubigan, sa mga ilog, sa mga ponds. Okay, so this igneous rock, when mixed with water, okay, that is called hydration, of course, it produces different kinds of rocks already, and that is chemical weathering in nature. Last is carbonation. Okay, so this is one of the let's say most common forms of chemical weathering, especially within urban areas sa mga cities. Why? Let's read it first. Nitrogen oxide, sulfuric oxide, carbonic oxides, any oxide mixed with water, they form acids. And yun yung tinatawag natin na acid rain. Okay, carbonation is commonly known as acid rain. So those things, those substances, those solutions, those acids, they actually dissolve rocks. So I'll give you an example. These rocks, okay, they were formerly outgrown rocks, and each time it rains, water forms inside it. Okay, water forms inside it, and year after year, okay, the acid rain actually dissolves the rock itself, and what happens is that it tends to form arches. Kaya sa ibang bansa, salt valleys and stuff, especially in Philippines also, there are places like this arch. Okay? And how did it happen? Binutas ng acid rain. Okay? Going inside the rock, binutas niya, it made a hole out of this rock, making it an arch. That's why arches are examples of carbonation. You can even see here that acid rain has eaten up the limestone formations in buildings in Washington, D.C. Okay, ayan, sinira na ng acid rain. That is all carbonation. Okay, even this. Okay, this is actually a residue when the acid dissolves this type of mineral. So, ito yung parang kalawang niya kapag humalo sa acid. These ones, they are destroyed by rain. Okay, that's why. Oh, how about this? This is called verdigris. Okay, verdigris. Let me just type it there. So, spelling is verdigris. Yeah. So, when copper mixes with water, actually it corrodes. Okay, yung copper, yung tanso na nasa statue sa taas, okay, verdigris yan. Parang humalo yung tubig and it formed a residue like that. So, when you see something like that, bluish green color, it means that the statue is made out of legitimate copper. Okay, again, that is because of carbonation. So you see how acid rain can affect rocks as well. Even buildings. Okay, this one is eaten by acid rain. This one is eaten by acid rain. Acid rain again. So, let's go to the factors that affect weathering. Okay, let's go first to climate. Okay, climate actually has a very big part because climate dictates the amount of moisture, kung gaano kadaming tubig sa atmosphere and sa environment mo. Okay, so arid climates, pag sinabing arid, tuyo. Okay, dry climates are very dry and rate of weathering is slow. So kapag wala daw masyadong tubig, tatagal yung mga rock. Kaya pala, yung mga Egyptian temples natin ay nandyan pa rin. Why? Because there is a very slow rate of weathering. Okay, even in Greece. Okay? Meanwhile, in Angkor Wat, it's being slowly, let's say, disintegrated because the weather in Cambodia is actually a bit humid, like Philippines. So, rainy and humid as well. So, kaya pala yung mga buildings doon, hindi na masyadong maintained. Okay? Kasi weathering din is a big factor. So, yeah, obelisk is another example. Okay? And Angkor Wat. Okay? Particle size and shape. Okay? Depending on the rock, the more surface a rock has, okay, the higher the rate of weathering. So, pag mas maliit yung rocks, mas madaling masira. Kapag mas malaki yung rock, mas mahirap masira. So, yeah, that is, what do we call this effect? We call it surface area to volume ratio. Okay, again, surface area to volume ratio, kapag mas malaki, mas mahirap masira. So, yeah. Mineral composition, resistance to weathering elements rely on composition. That's why rocks with better particles, such as this one is made of granite and this one is made of limestone. So, depende sa rock kung ano yung mas matibay. So, kung pipili ka ng lapida, better have a granitic tombstone kesa yung limestone lang for it to last longer. And based on the different factors for weathering, what is the ideal climate, particle shape, and composition for a rock to become the most weather resistant? So let's try. Okay, first, climate. What kind of climate is the ideal? One is arid. Okay, how about the ideal particle shape? Okay, it should have a circular and large size. Okay, how about number 3? What composition? It should be mostly metamorphic. Okay, so composition niya dapat is metamorphic in nature. Why? Metamorphic rocks are actually compressed and have good resistance to weathering. Okay, speaking of, what rock in your list of rocks last time has actually the best composition to become weather resistant? Okay, believe it or not, ang pinaka matibay na rock when it comes to weathering is, okay, I hope you would research it. Okay, it's called rose quartz. Okay, it's rose quartz. So this type of rock is actually a weather resistant rock, rose quartz. So there you have it. Okay, that is the end of the lesson. What did we do? We were able to identify, okay, this competency. We were able to describe how rocks undergo weathering. And at the end of the lesson, we will now be able to define the word weathering and distinguish the difference between the two types of weathering, physical and chemical. And we were able to identify the factors that affect the rate of weathering. So that is the gist of the lesson today. So question, were you able to answer the graphic organizer that was assigned to you earlier? So after you finish the lesson, you can now pass the picture or the screenshot of your graphic organizer as the quiz for this lesson. So the last part of our lesson is for your recitation points. Okay, so you can answer after giving me the screenshot for your graphic organizer. You can answer below what kind of weathering method, okay, occurred on the following pictures. You can answer. So you will answer the subtype. Okay, remember to answer the subtype of weathering. Okay, so hindi lang basta physical or chemical. Kung physical yung number 1, anong type ng physical weathering? So subtype yung isasagot. So you can pause for this video for a moment and answer this and take your time. Okay? So thank you for listening to this 30-minute lesson video. This is Teacher Gian and salamat po sa ating mga students for watching this video. See you again next time.